Have you noticed that Sony makes hardly any of the products that they used to be famous for? For example, Sony Handycam camcorders. In the late 2000s, Sony had as many as 16 models in their lineup. But now they're down to just one model, which sells for almost $1,000, well out of the reach of most consumers. Or the iconic Walkman, which revolutionized the way people listen to music. Sony does still sell a handful of Walkman models, but none that play any kind of physical media. Now they're just glorified MP3 players. In fact, Sony no longer sells any kind of product for playing cassette tapes and compact discs. Their last model, which was this CFD S70 boombox, was discontinued in 2023. Even if you're looking for something as mundane as a Sony Dream Machine clock radio, you won't find any sold under that name anymore. Sony stopped using the Dream Machine name in the early 2010s, and their trademark for it has since been cancelled. But Sony actually does still sell one model of clock radio, even though they don't call it a Dream Machine anymore, the ICF C1, which has been on the market unchanged since 2015. I came across this when I had a $10 Best Buy gift certificate burning a hole in my pocket, and I was looking around the store for something relatively inexpensive to use it on. So even though I don't need a new clock radio, I have a 1985 Magnavox clock radio which is still working perfectly fine, I decided to pick it up. It sells for $19.99 and has an AM/FM radio tuner, which is good because many modern radios only tune in FM now. This is the French side I'm discovering, so I'll flip it around to the English side. Gradual wake alarm, single alarm, DST automatic daylight saving time adjustment, which is interesting, backup battery included. Sony also used to have the ICF C1T model with a mirrored finish on the front and dual alarms, but now you can only get this basic single alarm version. But it does have factory preset time, so as soon as you plug it in, it should come up to something pretty close to the correct time, so you don't need to set it. And there you can see the copyright date of 2015, so that's how long Sony has been selling this model, and of course, it's made in China. So let's open it up. A whole bunch of information there about time zones. I'll take a look at that later. We get some packaging, the power cord, which is good because it plugs directly into the wall, so it's not one of those that requires a wall wart power supply. And it's rather tightly packaged, but here it is. Includes some documentation. And there it is, nice and new. Unfortunately, it does not look like it has a plastic film covering the faceplate, which is unusual. On the front, you don't see anything when it's not plugged in, and even though this is not the version with that mirrored finish on the front, it is pretty reflective. On this side is the speaker, which is probably a 2-inch or 2.5-inch speaker, and the volume control for the radio. And on the other side is the tuning dial for the radio and the AM/FM band switch, both of which are marked in very tiny and hard to read black lettering on a black case. The main controls on the top are at least a little bit more legible. You get an alarm mode switch for off, buzz, or radio, buttons for setting the alarm time, a radio button, a sleep button, an alarm reset button, a little peephole window through which you can see the radio tuning dial, and then of course the large snooze button, which also controls the brightness of the display. But the secondary controls on the rear are back to this nearly illegible black on black lettering, so you'll probably need to learn how to use them by feel, as a button for entering the time setting mode, plus and minus buttons for setting the time, a DST button, and a time zone button. And more nearly illegible embossed lettering on the bottom, except for the serial number sticker, which also has a date code indicating this one was manufactured in the second quarter of 2024. And in this black hole underneath is the CR2032 lithium coin cell backup battery, which you're supposed to be able to reach in and pull out, but unless you have child-sized fingers, you'll probably need a pair of pliers to help you. And there it is, the CR2032 backup battery, which hopefully will last a bit longer than one of those 9-volt batteries. As I'm recording this, early tomorrow morning is when we switch from daylight saving time to standard time, and the clock goes back an hour. So I'm going to leave my Handycam recording, and at 2 a.m. we should see it flip back to 1 a.m. and the DST indicator should disappear. And here are the 3 different brightness settings you get by pushing the snooze button. This is full brightness, that's medium brightness, and that's low brightness. But even the full brightness isn't actually that bright. Not like some clock displays which use blue LEDs and they light up the entire room at night. This is actually not that bad. And even if this is too much for you, you can make it even dimmer. And the dimmest setting definitely will not disturb your sleep. Now let me try setting the alarm, which is a bit unconventional because the set button doubles as the minus button. And when you push it, it just says off. I could read the manual, but you shouldn't need to read a manual to figure out how to set the alarm on a clock radio. So I'm going to try pushing it and holding it. Okay, that just flashed off as well, so what are you supposed to do here? It just keeps saying off. Maybe I have to put the switch into one of the positions before I can set it. Okay, that seems to have done the trick. It started out at midnight, and now when I push minus, you can see the time going down. But I don't want to wake up at midnight, so let me set it to something more normal. And the longer you hold it, the faster it goes. So I don't think it's as good as having separate hour and minute buttons, but at least it's not too bad, especially since you can go backwards too. Okay, it's currently 6:11 and I set the alarm to 6:15 and it's going to use the buzzer, so in a couple of minutes we'll hear what it sounds like. There it goes, and it has a gradual wake alarm, so it's going to start out quiet and get gradually louder. That really is pretty quiet to start out with. There it goes. Is it going to get even louder than that? And I guess that means you get 10 minutes for the snooze instead of the normal 9 minutes. And there's the snooze, which also starts out quiet and gradually gets louder the longer you let it go. Which I think if you're gonna have a snooze, it should start out pretty loud to discourage you from keep hitting the snooze button. But that's the way they designed it. You can keep doing 10-minute snoozes indefinitely, I guess, until you finally shut it off. And that's what the radio alarm sounds like. It just turns on the radio. Nothing fancy. Like virtually all radios made today, this may look like it has an analog tuning dial, but it's actually digital. The radio uses a digital signal processor chip to do its tuning, so you will notice some choppiness as you tune across the band, although it doesn't seem to be quite as bad on the Sony as it is on some other radios I've tried.
Penalties. Can you ask for anything else to keep you cool at night? Meaning any. One of them. What had happened?
30 on WNYC.
2024 Polak.
Thought I did. I wasn't up to his.
So you can notice some of that choppiness as you turn across the dial, but it is picking up plenty of stations, so the reception is actually very good on FM.
All news, all the time. This is 1010 Wins at 92.3 FM, New York.
Good evening, 67 degrees at 6 o'clock on this Thursday. I'm Paul Murnane. Here's what's happening.
For full forecast details and today's top stories, listen live on the iHeartRadio app. We've got the link at wham1180.com.
News Radio Wham 1180
On AM, that's actually picking up 1180 WHAM, Wham Radio from Rochester, New York, which is probably about 250 miles away from here, so that's doing pretty good. Of course, it's nighttime right now, so it's going to be picking up some skywave on AM.
Adjust the tuning. Try a new translation.
Yeah, if you adjust the tuning on AM, you're going to get some of that choppiness and also this very muffled sound quality. It's very narrow band on AM.
Soft Rock Radio, the lighter side of classic rock and more. Online at softrockradio.net. And on your Amazon smart speaker, just say, play Soft Rock Radio.
And if you want to doze off to the radio, you press the sleep button. And you get choices of 90 minutes, 60 minutes, 30 minutes, or 15 minutes. And off leaves the radio on continuously until you press the alarm reset button. It's not like most clock radios where if you want to cancel the sleep, you press snooze. On this, you press alarm reset. So unfortunately, this little cube-shaped ICF-C1 will probably be the end of the line for Sony clock radios, because it's their last model. It's not even called a Dream Machine anymore. It's been on the market since 2015, and they're probably just going to keep making it until someone at Sony decides it's not worth selling anymore. And that's a shame, because overall I think it's a good product. Yes, some of the controls are a little bit quirky, and the radio doesn't have the best sound quality, but overall it does everything you need a clock radio to do, and that automatic daylight saving time adjustment will come in handy. For all the people who complain about needing to change their clocks twice a year, this one does it automatically. And when you consider that it cost about the same as a similar clock radio would have cost 30 years ago, you really can't complain too much.